let's talk about last night's national TV NBA Cup games. All right, the first one featured the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers versus the reigning champion Boston Celtics, and the second one featured the rumbling Oklahoma City Thunder without big man Chet Holmgren and the San Antonio Spurs without next-gen superstar Victor Wembanyama. The matchup that many fans had circled on their calendars, and with the Cavaliers' undefeated run coming to an end in a 117-120 defeat, and the Spurs still finding a way to beat one of the best teams in the West 110-104, the NBA Cup games continue to just prove to be some of the most exciting games we'll see over the course of the regular season. So I gotta share my thoughts on what I've seen from both games. Alright, so starting with the Cavs versus Celtics, I actually didn't catch this game until the second quarter as I was finishing some podcast related work around tip-off. But when I started tuning in, the Celtics, they hadn't gone off on their crazy run yet. Like, the Cavs were still down around the 7 to 10 point range, right? So it was still very much so a winnable game. But one of the details I noticed instantly was that Evan Mobley was being used as a point of attack defender on Jaylen Brown, which to me was like, I guess, a nice wild card from Kenny Atkinson. But at the same time, I'm like, he's playing the 5 right now. He's a very good rim protector. Like, mind you, Evan Mobley is somebody that can block shots and intimidate defenders at the rim, offensive players at the rim. And yet, because of this strategy, and mind you, Jarrett Allen resting at this point in the game, you now have no rim protection inside. Like, I respect the confidence in Evan Mobley to hang on the perimeter and the confidence in your team to make the proper rotations, but I'm sorry, that's just not the NBA that I know. You know, and what shocked me even more was that right on the other end, Joe Mazzulla is putting Jaylen Brown on Evan Mobley, and I think even Jarrett Allen when he checked in the game. And in this situation specifically, I would have liked to see Evan Mobley demand the ball more down low. There was a point where he made an aggressive move inside, hit a nice jump hook, and so I expected that to continue. I expected Evan Mobley to say, okay, I got a height advantage. They're putting Jaylen Brown on me. Sure, he has a stronger base, but I got the height advantage. Like, give me this ball in the post. That's the NBA I know. If you're a big man and you got a guard on you, I don't care who it is. If you got that height advantage, you get that ball and you demand it, right? And this is something you're going to hear me. I have an appearance on my 19 Media Group teammates show. Shout out my guys, Cal Lee and Warren Shaw, hosts of the NBA Baseline podcast. Me and Cal actually have an episode where we talk about Evan Mobley, the importance of Evan Mobley stepping up in this kind of, I guess, third option role with the Cavaliers, right? The importance of him getting aggressive and recognizing, hey, I can help out Darius Garland. I can help out Donovan Mitchell. You know, that's something that is going to be very key for him moving forward. So I thought this was the perfect game for him to show that. But that didn't happen at least as fast as I thought it would. And, you know, because that's the thing with Cleveland this year. Is Evan Mobley going to recognize when it's his turn to attack, right? Even with Donovan Mitchell and or Darius Garland out there. And thankfully, I believe that question was answered in this third quarter of this game. But before that, I would be remiss if I just simply didn't acknowledge the Celtics' late second quarter three-point barrage. Listen, that has been their formula the past 3 seasons now. When the Celtics are making these runs, you know, containing mostly threes, they are almost impossible to stop. Especially Jason Tatum. When he's going to work, hitting off dribble threes and catch and shoot threes, he looks like a top 3 player in the league. Okay, I know not everybody likes to give Jason Tatum his flowers. I guess there's this thing going around that people just don't like the way Jason Tatum plays the game of basketball, which I understand, like, where that sentiment is coming from. You know, maybe he doesn't always make the best decisions in terms of playmaking. Maybe he can kind of settle for the jump shot as opposed to just getting whatever he wants inside, right? We kind of see those flaws with Jason Tatum. But when he's rolling like this, and mind you, we got to put some respect on his name as an NBA champion, he's top 3. He's top 3, right there with a guy like Giannis, right there with a guy like Jokic. Like, when Jason Tatum gets that look in his eye, which we saw last night, he is very dangerous. He is very dangerous. And one thing is for sure about the Celtics this year, too. though I'm usually the one to always remind people that shooters miss, right? You got to be careful shooting all them threes because shooters miss, right? The Celtics three ball has been money this season. And I feel like I'm seeing less droughts compared to past years, right? Or I think more specifically, when they do experience those droughts from downtown, they've learned to manage them better. They don't respond with, they don't respond to missed threes with more missed threes, right? I think they work to get different looks to try to eventually get back to the 3-point shot, right? I think we even saw that the first game of the season versus New York, right? This team was rolling from the 3-point line. And guess what? They didn't start missing until they tried to break the NBA record for most threes made by a team in a single game, right? That was, and when they were missing, it was the end of the game and, the game had been won already. So that shows you, if the Boston Celtics can contain over the course of a 48-minute game, most of those minutes making threes, you can't stop that. You can't stop that. And quickly the Celtics lead came from, 7 to 10 points to about 17 to 20. And that put the Cavaliers on the ropes. Easy. And that's why I think they were able to beat the Cavs last night. Like I said, they just didn't have those droughts that you usually see in the second quarter or the third quarter where they're just fallen too much in love with the jump shot. And see, this is the thing, because going into that third quarter, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, now those were guys looking to draw fouls, right? Derek White's getting the ball and he's getting into the mid-range area, making it look easy, right? With a guy like Donovan Mitchell on him, who's, again, stronger base, probably a little quicker than him, but it didn't matter. Derek White, he played his game, got into the mid-range, swish, like he did it a couple times last night. And again, I thought those were nice jabs, right? In the midst of all the haymakers the Celtics were throwing from downtown, Derek White gave them some nice jabs with the mid-range game. Al Horford got some inside looks and some putbacks. Peyton Pritchard makes a crafty play, right? And Nehemias Queta, right? This is a guy who played very well in the G League last year, and now he's been able to get some real meaningful minutes with Porzingis out. He seems to just do the dirty work that gets the crowd and his teammates energized. So what I like from Boston is that they look like they know how to stop the bleeding better than we've seen them do in the last couple of seasons. And then you can imagine that comes from their championship run last season, right? When you are at the top, you learn those things, right? And when you have the chemistry that a lot of those guys have, you learn that over the course of your defeats, right? So now they look even better in that regard. And I think they looked ready to show the world like, yo, the Cavs, y'all still got some work to do. Okay, that 15-0 is cute, but like y'all didn't win. We won. So, y'all got some work to do. But, as the game continued, the Cavs finally did go on their run. You kind of, in this era, man, you just know it's coming, right? We always say basketball is a game of runs, and there is no truer example of that than this modern style of NBA basketball. Because all of a sudden the Cavaliers go on this 16-3 run at one point in the third quarter, and it helped them really survive the Celtics 3-point barrage and make this game truly must-see TV. And it wasn't solely Donovan Mitchell bringing them back. Even with Darius Garland's horrendous shooting night, Sam Merrill opened up the second half with 2 momentum-driving threes, right? George Niang played physical defense and took the challenge guarding Jason Tatum. He's kind of a chippy defender, right? He likes that challenge, and, he took that head on. And then, most of all, though, again, the answer to the question for the Cleveland Cavaliers was answered, and that boy, Evan Mobley, his aggressiveness remained the same even when they were down 20. Even down 20, it was such a joy for me to see Evan Mobley demand the basketball, get inside, get a little nasty. You see him talking to himself, high-fiving teammates like, let's go, let's go. I thought that was awesome to see because he didn't always do that to start his career. But now he's finally at that point where he knows, like, hey, I can take control of a game. Like, and this team expects me to do that. So, I was at the crib like, yes, he finally figured it out. And Evan Mobley, that looks for his shot makes the Cavs that much more scary. He knocked down an open 3. He got a nice putback off his own miss to cut the Celtics lead to 6 around the 3:30 mark in the third. And it was in this stretch that the Cleveland Cavaliers showed resilience. Which is exactly what you need if you have championship aspirations, okay? To me, even though they lost, that told me right there that they are truly ready for that next level, because this is why we all tuned in, right? Even Derek White said post-game, I'm paraphrasing, but he knew The stakes were high, word to De La Soul, right? This matchup is what could likely end up being the Eastern Conference Finals. And while the Celtics proved that there were indeed levels to this success in the first half, the Cavs equally proved that they are legit with the second half resilience that they showed to not be rattled by Boston's lights out shooting and still find a way to make it a close game. All right, but of course, in the end, the Celtics experience showed, and they eventually hit big shot after big shot to gradually run with this game and seal the deal. You know, the Cavs, they got the lead down to 2 points, a little over halfway through the fourth quarter. But here is where Tatum got a dunk, Peyton Pritchard hit an open three, and eventually Derek White, who has to be the most underrated villain in the league, hit one of his life-draining threes to help give the Celtics enough cushion to keep the lead the rest of the way. I mean, Derek White has done this so many times, even in this year's Olympics. This dude just somehow makes these contested threes look effortless, like he knows they're going to go in, and he hits them in such timely moments. And to me, he is truly like their Derek Fisher, right? I know I just compared a Derek to a Derek, and especially, I know I just compared a Celtic to a Laker, but feel me for a second, okay? The same way we used to see D-Fish hit key big threes in big moments is exactly what I see Derek White do for the Boston Celtics time and time again. And in a nutshell, by the final buzzer, you could tell that this matchup here showcased the difference between a team that has won a championship and a team that is trying to take that leap. And Kenny Atkinson even confirmed this post-game as he said, they had a playoff physicality and we had a regular season physicality. Again, there are levels to this. You know, the Cavs played really well. They did a great job holding on to the end in a game where Darius Garland shot terrible. So just imagine if a couple more of his misses were makes, they might have won that game. But the Celtics continue to say, not so fast, Cleveland. You still got to get through us. And that is exactly how champions are supposed to respond. So hopefully we indeed get this Eastern Conference Finals series come May, because this was a heck of a movie trailer for that. So I'm hoping that that ends up being the actual movie that we see later in this season. But that wasn't the only good game from last night. As we got to see two teams with two young cores go at it between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. All right, I know it hurt to not see Wemby and Chet go at it on this stage, right, in the NBA Cup game for group play. But honestly, I was happy to see the Spurs in particular get this game on national TV to showcase their young talent aside from Victor Wembanyama, because between Keldon Johnson, Julian Champagnie, a healthy Zach Collins, Charles Bassey, like Stephon Castle, the Spurs got some solid pieces to work with alongside future Hall of Famer Chris Paul and Wemby, and even guys like Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sochan, who, you know, were also out with injury. And let it not be forgotten, the Spurs made the play-in in 2022, I believe it was. And with now a 7-8 record after this game, it's super close in the West. But if they can stay around 500 this year, they might be back in that conversation. And it'll be very tough with the Clippers, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, and the Sacramento Kings all right there ahead of them with the same record. But we'll see if they can steal some wins here and there, much like they did last night, to increase their chances. But on the flip side, I want to talk about OKC and how them not having a scrappy big man in Isaiah Hartenstein and then now not having Chet Holmgren due to injury gives them zero interior presence. And I know this modern NBA is pro small ball, but I don't care. Okay, y'all, if you know me, you follow Hip to the Games. I'm a old head in a young head's body. Okay, like, I will never believe in a team that consistently plays basketball with no big man in the rotation, okay? I still have them coming out the West. I'm going to roll with my preseason pick, okay, if healthy. But right now, Jalen Williams playing the 5 is not it. He's hanging. He's hanging. I give him props. But the Rockets tried that no big man mess in 2020, and it didn't work out long term. And last night, we saw how them not having an interior anchor on defense gave up plenty of open threes for the Spurs, because the Thunder were forced to double guys like Zach Collins and Bassey down low, right? Which leaves a shooter open, right? That's the thing. We talk about, and I'm guilty of this too, we talk about the way these guards nowadays aren't able to make post-entry passes. It's because they're scared that with the double team coming, it's going to be an easy turnover. So you don't even see a lot of these low post bigs get the ball because they know the double team's coming. But equally, that's going to leave an open shooter in the corner or on the wing or at the top of the key, right? And then the same thing. Now the OKC Thunder have to gang rebound even more, which, if unsuccessful, is going to lead to an open three if the Spurs get that offensive rebound. So it got to a point where the Spurs just knew if they stuck with their drive and kick offense, it's going to work in their favor because somebody's going to be open at some point. That defense is going to collapse because you have to get 2 6'7" dudes to make up for the lack of a 6'10", or 7-footer that you could have had sitting in the paint. Now, ironically though, I say all that and OKC still won the rebound battle by 1 rebound last night. And they had 5 more offensive rebounds than San Antonio. Could you believe that? However, though, when they faced the Clippers, who have Ivica Zubac, the Thunder lost the total rebound battle 29-47, despite finding a way to win that game. Again, in the old school, we always heard, if you want to win games, you play defense and you rebound the basketball. And somehow, some way, the Thunder are finding ways to get some wins, even with their rebounding flaws. But long term, I don't know if that can hang and be sustainable for an entire 7-game playoff series. So it's just funny to see that this team is going against what has generally worked in the NBA for a long time, and they're still finding success. But to me, even with all that said, rebounding wasn't even the biggest factor in last night's game, because obviously, another thing about not having a big man down low for OKC, it gave the Spurs more confidence to drive inside, and this showed in the free throw disparity where OKC, even with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who has an impressive knack to get to the free throw line, this team only got to the line 7 times, while San Antonio had 19 free throw attempts. Okay, as long as OKC doesn't address their center problem right now, more teams will take that approach as they seek to steal some games from a Western Conference contender while they can. All right, you definitely better believe that there are some teams, again, in that lower part of the Western Conference in particular, who are looking up at OKC and saying, yo, we can kind of expose this. Like, we can take advantage of this. Like, let's get a win while we can. And I think the Spurs did exactly that. I respect the Thunder for still finding a way to be competitive, but I'm positive that they are missing dearly both of their big men right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes as the season progresses, as long as those guys are out. But flipping back to the San Antonio Spurs, though, how about rookie Stephon Castle's playmaking ability? He had some moments in this game where he was able to find guys inside when the pass didn't look like it was there initially, and even got some hockey assists that led to Spurs threes in that second half. Watching him out there really reminded me of when I read Phil Jackson's book 11 Rings back in high school, and he stressed how he always paid attention to the pass before the pass. Everybody looks at the assist, but few people look at how the assist was able to happen. And that was Stephon Castle last night. Granted, he had a career best 8 assists versus OKC, but he had a couple of hockey assists that showcase his playmaking potential and his vision, right? As a potential floor general for this team. And likely, what he probably has been able to learn from a veteran, future Hall of Famer in Chris Paul. Who, speaking of which, showed flashes of vintage CP3 with some clutch buckets from both the mid-range and beyond the arc. Okay, I'm convinced the certainties of life are death, taxes, and Chris Paul shooting from his right hip. That pocket is something about that shooting pocket is undefeated for Chris Paul, and it's been money for literally a decade and some change. So, how awesome is it that even with his mileage, he can still lead this young team and put up a double-double with some clutch buckets, all while maintaining that competitive fire we've seen for so long, man. Shout out Chris Paul. I know OKC definitely hates to pick up a loss like this, especially in what was a winnable game until that third quarter, because again, the critique with OKC is who is going to score outside SGA, right? The Spurs, you look at that game and they got big shots from Chris Paul, Zach Collins, Keldon Johnson, some dunks from Charles Bassey. Meanwhile, for OKC, if it wasn't for Shai and Jalen Williams finally putting a decent stretch together early in the fourth quarter to help their comeback effort, that final 6-point deficit would have been much larger. It's so unfortunate because they play with high energy. They have the best defense this year. They have shooting, but they seem to lack some extra creation. There was a point in the third quarter where Jalen Williams got so cold, it really looked like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was their only hope. Jalen Williams, he's got to look for those driving lanes. The same driving lanes he took in the on in the fourth quarter, and it kind of helped OKC charge their comeback. Those should have been the same driving lanes that he was looking for that third quarter when he was missing jumper after jumper. Again, I know he's young, but he's emerging as a star talent in this league. He's gotta, especially if OKC wants to win a championship, he's gotta recognize that sooner. Especially with Chet out, it is Jalen Williams' job to help out Shai Gilgeous in that department. And shout out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's got a lot of confidence in his guys to come through. He wants to instill that in them, which is great. But, again, what did I say in a previous Hip to the Games episode? The fourth quarter is for your stars to be stars. Okay, and granted, yes, Jalen Williams showed up in the fourth quarter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander definitely showed up in the fourth quarter. But it was that third quarter where the Spurs ended up increasing that margin more and more and put them in a dangerous spot. Somebody has got to supplement SGA in that scoring department, and really you would like to see that from Jalen Williams. I think that was also the critique, with getting a guy like Alex Caruso, because it's like, yes, he's a great defender, but he's not necessarily a creator. Again, I know when Alex Caruso was on the Chicago Bulls, he had some underrated games where he, kind of like this all-around threat, right? He could rebound, he could get assists. He was just doing all the dirty work, all the things that wouldn't show up on the stat sheet. And you kind of blink, look at the box score at the end of the game, and he's got like 8.6 rebounds, 7 assists, right? And so, he's good, but if we're talking scoring, it really wasn't much happening with outside of Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And again, OKC, they have shooters, right? And what did I just say about Boston? Shooters miss. So you got to be it's dangerous. It's dangerous territory. You got to think that OKC has to really address that this year. Who is going to score the basketball when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gives it up? And in games like this, when we need buckets, who is going to do that? You want to be selfless when he's on the floor. Cool. If you're SGA, right, you want to be selfless. You want to get your team involved. That's cool. But when he's off, when somebody's off, the team is trusting you to get busy and take the pressure off, right? And again, that's where Jalen Williams comes in. He can take that pressure off Shai to single-handedly win games. I think Jalen Williams is more than capable, but that's going to be the difference if OKC truly wants to contend for the next few seasons, okay? But similarly to Cleveland versus Boston, a blowout turned into an entertaining finish, which is great for the NBA Cup and great for us fans, but I felt like part of the reason that happened was because the Spurs didn't eat the clock till it was almost too late. Like, I felt like, again, in this fast-paced era, I felt like they should have started slowing the game down around the 9-minute mark in the fourth quarter while they were still nearly up 20. But instead, they were just, they kept the pace, and then they were missing shots, and I'm like, why are y'all still trying to, like, get the lead to 30? You should be slowing the game down, but it only gave OKC more time to trim the lead. And that's the thing with today's NBA, man. I hate the way the pace of the modern NBA game influences teams and especially young players to rush when they don't have to, as it only gives the opposing team more possessions to make a comeback. Slow the game down and seal the win, right? Especially with Chris Paul out there. I was surprised that they didn't try to do that sooner. And like I say, you always think of Michael Jordan. I didn't lose, I just ran out of time. That is the epitome of today's game. So it's really even more imperative that you slow the game down, gather yourselves, eat that clock as much as you can, and cruise to a win, right? There should have been no reason that OKC came that close to stealing the game when you were almost up 20 points. That shows you how much possessions are in the league now. But granted, it all worked out in the end. Like I said, the Spurs hit some big shots and they were able to walk away with the W. All right. This game in a nutshell was a great chance for San Antonio to showcase their young talent outside of guys like Wemby and Devin Vassell. Keldon Johnson, shout out to him. He came through big time. Harrison Barnes' veteran presence was huge for them. Really nice for this team. Stephon Castle showed his playmaking skills. It was a dope game involving two teams with plenty of youth. Spurs versus OKC always used to hit different, and it seems like we are gradually entering a new era of those battles. So that's going to be dope to see. So The NBA Cup continues to be must-see TV, and I'm excited to see how it continues to unfold, especially if we get more games like the two we saw last night for TNT's Tuesday doubleheader. Comment down below your thoughts on these games, and even the ones I didn't discuss, as I know the Lakers squeaked by the Jazz with rookie Dalton Connect, dropping 37 on 12 of 16 shooting, 9 of 12 from deep. Human Torch. I heard Baller's Life called them West Side Connect. I think that's a fire nickname for the youngin' already. The Nuggets beat the Grizzlies without Nikola Jokic as Russell Westbrook became the first player to record 200 triple-doubles. And then the Nets won a nail-biter versus Charlotte. So lots of good games last night. All right, feel free to share your thoughts. And in the meantime, stay tuned for more content coming your way on my solo channel as we, look to fill in some of those quieter moments within my bi-weekly schedule.